Empire.
Zach Wilson hits the field. And what did we learn? What's up, everybody? It's Mike Jones. Thanks for coming back for another episode of the Football Jones podcast. You can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. And today, our guest is Andy Vasquez from NorthJersey.com. He is the Jets columnist / reporter, and he was there on hand this past weekend as the number 2 pick hit the field as the Jets were among the first teams to hold their rookie minicamp. So, wanted to see things through Andy's eyes and learn what we can expect from this transition for the Jets as they've got a new coach, new offensive coordinator, and obviously a new quarterback. So Andy is going to get on there here in just a little bit and talk about that. Before that, I want to tell you to go over to usatoday.com. It came out on Monday. I have my quarterback power rankings now that free agency and the draft is out of the way. Got it broken up into tiers of elite, very good, solid, shaky, ascending. It's very interesting to see the way this thing breaks down, and it'll kind of give us a preview of what to expect with these quarterbacks. Interestingly enough, there's not a whole lot of position battles. Most of these teams are set at the quarterback position. Now, it doesn't mean that they're good choices, and some of these leashes might be a little short, but you'll probably enjoy checking that out. Go over to usatoday.com and check out my quarterback power ranking tiers. But now, let's get on to it. Talking to Andy Vasquez about number 2 overall pick, Zach Wilson of the New York Jets. Hey guys, we're excited to announce a new partnership with the fastest growing daily fantasy sports site on the planet, Monkey Knife Fight. And to kick off this new venture right, our partners at MKF are giving all of our listeners a free $5 game when you create their account and a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 when you use the promo code JONES to make your first deposit. It's a lot of fun. I like going on there in the NBA section with the more or less contest. You pick 2 players going head to head and pick whether you think they're going to exceed or fall below certain statistical marks. It's fun. You're going to love it. Learn more and claim your free game plus the instant deposit match up to $100 by heading to playmkf.com/Jones. That's playmkf.com/Jones. All right, and now here we are with Andy. Thanks so much for coming on here, man. I really appreciate it. I wanted to have you on after seeing your piece on Zach Wilson's first time on the field, the rookie minicamp, and what you saw from that. We're going to get into it in detail, but as an overview, what did you think from the number 2 overall pick, first time being on the field with his coaches?
Well, I mean, we didn't get to see all that much on the field just because Robert Saleh decided to limit things for I think, a decent enough reason. He wanted to give Wilson and the other rookies a chance to kind of, make their mistakes in team drills behind closed doors. Because, they haven't had the playbook for more than a week. They haven't been on the field together, and there wasn't going to be 11-on-11 drills because of the current situation. They just don't have enough players because you can only invite a certain amount of guys into camp. So they wanted to let him kind of adjust and figure things out, and then maybe we'll see him in OTAs, and I'm cool with that. So we got to see him in drills, and he looked good. I mean, I think he should look good. That's what you would expect out of the number 2 pick, but it was more kind of his presence, and the stuff that impressed me was more off the field and the way his teammates are reacting to him, and the way he kind of carries himself. Watching from a distance in college, you don't see kind of the depth that he has of personality, and he's an interesting dude, and he definitely has a charisma that has already kind of captivated his rookie teammates, and I think that's kind of cool and a good sign for the Jets. So that was the stuff that really stood out to me, the way he's kind of carrying himself and looking very comfortable in an overwhelming situation, because he even admitted it's crazy how fast your life can change. And 2 weeks ago he was living in Utah. I'm pretty sure where he was going to go, but now he's here in Jersey, and and adjusting to his new life and his new role as probably the starting quarterback up for the Jets this fall.
Yeah, it is a big change going from Utah to New York. Can you give people who aren't familiar an overview or an idea of what the fan base is like and what the media, the scrutiny, the spotlight of being there as the Jets quarterback is like for somebody like Wilson?
So first of all, we're not that bad, but it's intense. I mean,
Right.
look, if he had done team drills, it would have been 7-on-7s on Friday and Saturday. I mean, we would have charted every snap. We would have analyzed every snap. We would have talked about what reads he was making. I mean, we would have gone in depth on that. And that's how it's going to be every time he practices in team drills in front of us throughout training camp. I mean, and then the fan base, I mean, they are very, very intense. And for covering this team for the last 6 years, very passionate and very badly want to see a winner, but it's a very frustrated fan base as well because they have had such little success, not only over the last 10 years, but there's frustration going back over the last 53 years since their last Super Bowl. So they are desperate for change. And I think this fan base, he's walking into a situation now where it's the most optimistic I've seen it since I've been on the beat, more optimistic than with Sam Darnold in 2018, just because you have a new coach, you have a general manager that a lot of the fans do believe in at this point. And it really is a different vibe. And that gets said about the Jets a lot, but I don't say that. I haven't said that. Let's see what happens. But this does feel a lot different in a lot of ways than it has before.
What are some of the differences you feel that, say, I mean, because you guys that team hit the reset button just, a couple years ago. They had just drafted Sam Darnold. Here they are, reset button again, new coaching staff, high, pick as a quarterback. What are some of the differences you feel?
Well, I mean, if you just start in January with the coaching search, past coaching searches have not gone smoothly for the Jets and have not ended with them getting one of the most coveted candidates on the market. And this coaching search, I mean, Joe Douglas laid out what they wanted, a leader, a CEO type, someone who, could resonate with everyone in the locker room. And then they go out and there's not any weird leaks or anything weird happening. They go out, they get that guy, they hire him early and in Robert Saleh. And that was just a very smooth process. And then you go to free agency and Douglas laid out what he wanted to do in terms of bringing in character guys and adding weapons. And they accomplished many of those goals in free agency and they did it responsibly and they added some high profile players, but without, making the big splashy kind of Jet spend that could backfire in a big way. It was all done with very responsible contracts that really after 2 years, there's no money left on these things. And then going into the draft too, it was just, they had a plan and they executed it. And you can tell that the coaching staff is working together with the front office. And I know these are normal things for normally good teams, but these are not normal things for the Jets. It's a big deal. It's a step in the right direction. And that to me, is exciting or should be exciting for Jets fans because they just haven't had that kind of functionality. And I know it's like the, basic operating floor, but for the Jets, it just hasn't been there.
Do you feel like Sam Darnold ever got a legit opportunity to succeed in that role?
That's a complicated question. I would say no. I would say they did not give him. How the answer to that question is that we still don't know what Sam Darnold is after 3 years. He could go to Carolina and be a good quarterback because the Jets just left too many question marks here in terms of not surrounding him with any sort of protection on the offensive line that was competent consistently and not giving him a number one receiver to throw to at any point during his 3 years with the team. So I think that's not enough to evaluate a quarterback. So they failed him in that way, but also good quarterbacks can overcome this stuff. And even in Sam Darnold's rookie year, his team wasn't that much better or worse than it was in 2020, but he made things happen and overcame some of that adversity. And he didn't overcome any of that adversity. So he did not play well. He was maybe the worst quarterback in the league over the last 2 years. And he's to blame for it too. But I think a lot of it had to do with the Jets just not putting anything around him, and that was a huge failure.
Now, and you have a different coaching staff as well. The guidance, the coaching, the instruction that he got, was that adequate, or did you feel like that was lacking as well?
I just, if you look at the system that Adam Gase put in and Sam Darnold's strengths, it just, they never were compatible. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty clear pretty early on that Sam wasn't grasping or wasn't able to execute, or they didn't have the personnel, whatever. It wasn't working, and they kept riding with it. So, I mean, Sam Darnold was at his best when he was able to kind of improvise, and Adam Gase's offense wanted to put him in the pocket, make short throws, and not improvise, and like, oh, don't turn over the ball. So now you've got this guy who's at his best when he reacts, sitting in the pocket, trying to read, and it just never, I just think it was a terrible fit. And Gase, who I think has a better grasp of offense, I think he does some good things offensively, has some good ideas and things that can work, but he just didn't have the overall big picture view to kind of, and nobody there to tell him like, this isn't working, you got to switch course. That was a big problem, and it was not the right coaching staff for him. And I think obviously, given what the team did, it wasn't the right coaching staff for the team. So yeah, that was a big issue. And I think that's another huge reason for the real optimism that we're feeling around the Jets these days.
Because now you have a GM who handpicked his head coach, and together they handpicked their quarterback. So that unity, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge thing, and something that the Jets really haven't had in a while, just because they were kind of on a different coach GM schedule, because the Jets made the mistake after the 2019 season of the 2018 season of keeping Mike Maccagnan after firing Todd Bowles, when they really they should have moved on from Mike Maccagnan then. So yeah, I think that kind of threw everything off. But it's funny because Jets fans hate Adam Gase, but without Adam Gase, you don't have Joe Douglas. Mm-hmm. And without Joe Douglas, you don't have Robert Saleh. So Adam Gase is probably, by getting Mike Maccagnan fired so efficiently and so quickly, has really set the Jets up for this. It's funny, but it's true.
All right. And so the last one on the last regime, did you agree with parting with Sam Darnold, or should this coaching staff and GM giving him one more shot?
I saw merit on both sides, but for me, I would have done what the Jets did simply because of the financial situation. I mean, Sam Darnold wasn't good enough to pay $10 million on his fifth-year option this year, or I'm sorry, more like $18 million on too many options going on right now with contracts. But to pay him that much money on his fifth-year option, and then what if he struggles in 2021? Then you have no trade value for him. So, and if he plays well, you're going to have to give him a big contract, and you're moving forward with a guy who's off of one good season, who's played well. So I think starting over and paying a quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years about half of what they would have had to pay Darnold was a no-brainer if they thought that they could find somebody who had as much upside or more. And I think Wilson, you can argue there were better guys to pick at number 2 than him, but he certainly has a ton of upside, and you can see franchise quarterback potential there. So yeah, I think this was the right decision, and I would have made it.
I was just about to ask you, was that the right pick at number 2? Going him or Trey Lance, Justin Fields,
I liked
whatever.
Fields,
what did you
man.
think?
I don't understand like why Fields fell. I just don't.
Right.
This dude did everything right. He laid it all out on the line on the national stage, and showed his leadership, showed his toughness, showed his clutch, and showed that arm. I mean, I think he can make all the throws. Maybe he doesn't make them as smoothly. Doesn't come as natural. I think Wilson is like very fluid. It is shocking how like smooth he looks throwing the ball, but like that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I don't think. I mean, so I didn't get it. I liked Fields a lot. I thought he had a lot of intangibles, but look, these teams have advantages that I don't have of getting to know these guys better. And I can't sit here and question or fault them for picking Wilson just because that talent and charisma and leadership, it's all there. So okay. I personally like Fields and thought his track record against the competition he faced. I mean, you look back at last year and Zach Wilson's best game or the signature game was against UCF. I went to UCF, so I know that team well. That defense was not very good, and they were missing like 5 or 6 defensive starters because of suspensions and guys who were going to the pros. So I just have some questions there, but I mean, clearly, dude can spin the ball, and he can move, and his teammates respect him. So I'm not going to kill the Jets for making that pick. I like it, and I think he can be really good.
Hey, what kind of sense did you get from veterans on that team, or have you gotten to? I know everything is so different right now. I know guys are fatigued from Zooms and texting and everything like that, and you haven't been able to see any guy face to face because they haven't had OTAs or anything. But what kind of sense did you get from veterans on this pick?
I think some of them were probably a little put off. I think it's hard for me to remember because it's been a whirlwind of a month,
Right.
but I think there was some social media reaction that was kind of, maybe Marcus May was a little frustrated, or Sam Darnold was respected in the locker room. So I think some of these guys wanted him back, but look, man, there's only a few veterans on this team. Marcus May is the longest tenured guy, and he was drafted in 2017. I think once these guys get to know Wilson, they'll be impressed, and I don't think he'll have any trouble like gaining the trust or confidence of the locker room. If he's there and about winning and about getting the job done and working hard, I think these guys are going to be excited about it. And I think the young guys on the team are certainly excited. I know Mekhi Becton on social media was excited, and a lot of these guys, I'm sure Denzel Mims, they've got to be excited about the opportunity to work with Wilson. And I know the rookies now are definitely pumped.
Right, gotcha. Which is important since he's the one who's leading them. Now, I know, okay, 7-on-7 or just positional drills are way different than actual games, but there are stuff you can tell. You can kind of tell when a quarterback is a little bit in over his head, or the ball's not zipping off of his hands, jumping off like with some guys. What impressed you about what you saw? And was there anything in that little bit that you kind of made a note? We're going to have to see, we're going to have to monitor this for a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, he throws the ball very well. Everything was on target. I mean, not everything. There were a few throws where he missed some and a few receivers dropped some, but the ball didn't hit the ground very much in the time that we were out there, an hour each day. He can make all the throws, and he seemed to be putting the ball in the right place, where in these drills, the players didn't have to adjust when they started running downfield, which I thought was encouraging. And just his overall presence. He talked about how it has been a whirlwind and surreal doing all of this, but he looked totally comfortable and confident, and clearly has reached out to all of his teammates and gotten them, learned about them, and tried to find out kind of what they're doing. And you could see him like commanding the stretch. It sounds kind of silly, but sometimes that's not a given for guys, and they're kind of looking around, and you see 20 reporters over there with cell phones and 20 cameras. It could be a big deal. But he said he enjoyed the change of atmosphere and the opportunity to do this. So he seems to be very comfortable in this situation, even though it's an overwhelming and a little bit of a strange situation with COVID, doing everything the way we're doing it. But he seems comfortable, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully at some point, being able to be in the same room with him and kind of observing him, seeing what he's about. But his confidence, it's a different level, and it's hard to describe. But it's just the way he carries himself. It's very much like he belongs, and in like a top dog kind of deal, which, like I said, is not a given coming right out of the gate.
And was it a natural way, though? Because you know how some quarterbacks try to project that air, and guys in locker rooms can see right through that. I mean, right. They will roll their eyes when they can tell a guy's trying to force that confidence or that leadership type of thing. Or was it natural feeling from?
No, and I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because it's not like he's out there rah-rahing and yelling and all of that. It's very like one-on-one. You see it after plays. If a guy makes a nice play or a guy drops the ball, Wilson will walk over to him, talk to him, have a conversation like that. I'm not saying he's not like fired up to be out there, but he's not like shouting or making a scene or look at me or all that kind of, it seems to be like a quiet kind of thing. And one of the things that the rookies said that they were impressed by is like when the other offensive guys were drafted, like Vera Tucker, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, the running back, they all said that Wilson reached out to them right away, texted them, and had been in contact with them every day. And these guys have known him for like a week, and Elijah Moore is calling him a general. Michael Carter is saying that, he can already tell that he's someone who has my best interests in mind and the team's best interests in mind. I mean, it's just, I know the Jets haven't had a lot of offensive players that they've drafted at the same time as quarterbacks, but still, you just don't hear guys this quickly saying stuff like that. It doesn't really mean anything unless it works, but it's interesting and I thought kind of instructive to bring up.
What do you think of what he's going to be working with from a coaching standpoint? I mean, he's got a first-time head coach. He's got a first-time offensive coordinator. Now, I know that Mike LaFleur was very involved in the game planning with Kyle, but Kyle was the guy in San Francisco calling those plays. We know Matt LaFleur, is a sharp offensive mind. Mike LaFleur has been working very hard. His little brother has been working his hard up the ranks. But you have no veteran quarterback in his ear as well. So this setup that he's surrounded with, it's a total youth movement. How do you think that will play out? And is that a good thing for him?
So I still think there's a good chance the Jets will bring in a veteran, especially when you look at maybe a guy like Foles with the Bears could be the odd man out there given their current situation. I could see them making a trade or bringing in someone else like that. So I don't think the story is completely written on this QB room, but yeah, I think it is. There are some uncertainties there. Nobody knows how LaFleur is going to be as a coordinator because he's never been in this role. I will say that he looked very prepared, and again, this was a guy who did not look overwhelmed in his first official work as an offensive coordinator during rookie minicamp. I mean, he was watching, he was moving around, offering feedback to Wilson and several other players after every play. You could tell, I mean, I can't say exactly what was said out there because we're not allowed to, but you could tell that he was already hammering home certain things that he wants to institute in the offense. So I think that's an encouraging start. And Saleh carries himself very interesting. I mean, we see him on the sidelines as the defensive coordinator on game days for the 49ers, and this dude is fired up and pounding his chest and was a really emotional guy. But it wasn't like that at practice. You even saw it in the draft calls that the Jets released. Like he's very fiery and pumped, but he's just very stoic at practice, watching, offering quiet feedback, seeing something, gathering with the coaches and talking to them maybe about what they just saw on that play as the drills are ongoing. So, I mean, I know it's not an intense practice because they're not, scrimmaging or doing anything, but sometimes we would see other coaches or coordinators behave differently. So he's a really quiet leadership style, which I think is interesting. And also he is focused on like kind of showing the players that he's working in their best interest and the team's best interest. And that's something that I think has resonated. So I think they've got like a solid philosophy and a solid strategy moving forward that can kind of overcome some of their inexperience, but it's a question mark, and it's going to take Wilson being mature and some of these other young rookies or young players being mature and doing the right things for it to work.
Now, I know that it's different everywhere. What is the plan, or do you know yet for OTAs? Are there guys going to be there? Because we know the NFLPA is encouraging guys to stay away. We some teams where they say they're going to be there. It's going to be mixed. What's the Jets setup going to be like for the coming weeks?
Yeah, I think that we don't know yet. I would think I'd be surprised if the rookies weren't involved in OTAs, just because it's such a new offense. There's so many new pieces that they're bringing into this offense. But I mean, it is voluntary and it's the players' prerogative. So we really don't know. I know as soon as next week, they could have an OTA practice. And I believe May 17 starts the next phase. So I think there's some OTA opportunities coming up, and then mini camp in the middle of June. So I know if unless there's changes, I know there's been some uncertainty about what's going to happen over the next month. Unless there's changes to the offseason plan, we'll definitely see Wilson and his full complement in the middle of June. But I don't really know before then. But my sense is that we'll see probably before then at some of the OTA practices, at least Wilson and the rookies. But again, these guys aren't under any obligation, so it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's weird. Normally, I mean, like you said, you've been covering this team for 6 years. Normally, you always know, okay, draft's here, this is this day, and you know what to plan out. And this year, there's just so much weird uncertainty. It's hard to
it is weird, man. It's weird. Everything about it. It would be great to talk to a player in person at some point. I've heard Zach Wilson's voice for the first time when he was calling out, snaps the other day. And I heard Robert Saleh's voice for the first time when he, came over and socially distanced, said hi to us. So it's weird. Frank Gore was on this team and I never had an in-person conversation with him. So it's weird. And it's definitely a missed opportunity to do some of the stuff I really like to do. And I think all of us really like to do in our jobs, but everybody's kind of dealing with that in this crazy last year. So hopefully things change soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, what would be your top 2 or 3 questions about this Wilson transition as we head to, hopefully some on the field, some voluntary minicamp, the mandatory minicamp? What do you want to learn? There's a ton, I know, but what are kind of on that top of the list for you as this thing continues to progress throughout the offseason?
Yeah. So we've just heard so much about how he's a great fit for this offense, the Shanahan style offense where they try to get the quarterback outside the pocket and then take some shots downfield. And I think that's the first thing I want to see is like, how are they using him? And I know we're going to see a very light version of whatever it is, but yeah, I want to see him get outside the pocket and take some of those shots. I mean, that's what that offense was about. And I also want to see how the offensive line, the new offensive line, and it'll be hard to kind of gauge this in June, but how their blocking scheme and everything they're doing and where they have guys line up, because there's some questions on, is Vera Tucker going to be a guard? I think he's going to slot in at left guard, but they could slot him in at right tackle. They could slot him in at right guard. So there's a lot of options here. I want to see how Corey Davis looks with Zach Wilson. I want to see Elijah Moore. I mean, they got Elijah Moore and Michael Carter, 2 guys who have game-breaking speed and can change direction on a dime. The Jets haven't had exciting offensive players. So that's another thing I want to see is some big play potential. And then the cornerback position is the one thing that Joe Douglas wasn't able to successfully address in free agency or the draft. I don't think he really successfully addressed it at all. They still don't have a single proven starting cornerback on the roster. Some of the fans are upset about that and criticizing him. And I get it, but also this was never going to be a 1-year rebuild or a 2-year rebuild. This team was a mess. And if Joe Douglas had decided to fix the cornerback position in the draft and taken like cornerbacks with his 2 picks after Wilson or 3 picks, there was no guarantee he was going to fix it. So I like kind of what he did and adding to the pieces he had already built on. But it's a big question mark going into this season, and it's going to be interesting to see who's on the field in these early days and how they look.
Good deal. Well, Andy, I really appreciate it. I will be keeping an eye on your coverage as we continue to monitor Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh and the whole progress for the Jets. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm at NorthJersey.com. You can find all my work. And then I'm on Twitter at Andy_Vasquez, on Instagram at by Andy Vasquez. So please check it out and follow along, and exciting times for the Jets, which is different. So I'm excited about that and excited to document, hopefully, a different storyline than the one we've kind of been in Groundhog's Day for the last 5 years.
Good deal. All right, man. Thanks so much. I'll be seeing you, and hopefully we'll be able to get on the road this year.
Yeah,
and,
that'd be cool, man. Hopefully I'll see you out there.
Yep. This show can be found on Podcast DC, the new local app with hundreds of options in local news, health, and of course, the DMV region. Download the Podcast DC app to hear the Empire shows as well as other great content. All right, I really appreciate Andy giving of his time and giving us some insight. It's going to be interesting here. I really like Robert Saleh. I like Mike LaFleur. I've enjoyed the things that I've been able to learn when talking to each of them. Know both of them are young, hardworking, passionate guys, very bright, but they are in a tough division here where they're hitting reset. You've got the Bills who are ascending. You've got the Dolphins who are promising. The Patriots are looking to bounce back. And here they are with a rookie quarterback, a lot of young pieces all around them. They could take their lumps this year, but for right now, the optimism is high. We had to get to it while things still look good for the Jets, but hey, maybe this is where they can turn the page. Coming up, I will be back later this week because the NFL's regular season schedule is going to be coming out Wednesday night, and so on Thursday I'll have my reaction to that. Be joined by a guest as we break it down. This is the first 17 game schedule of the NFL regular season. We'll see how this plays out, which teams are screwed by the early bye, which ones benefit from a later bye, and what some of the prime matchups are of these teams. Should be a good one. Hope you guys have a great day. Once again, you can read me at usatoday.com. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByMikeJones. Don't forget to check out monkeyknifefight.com and get in there and have some fun on this daily fantasy sports site. And check out the Podcast DC app. Thanks, and have a great day.